Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we're going to talk about a way that one of the exhibits at the Hampton History Museum can come to your venue. My guest is Allen Hoilman from the museum. Welcome.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
This is really kind of cool. Like, you guys can send an exhibit to a school, a library, a church, really extend your education as an outreach.
That's exactly it. We want to be able to go to people who can't get to us. Of course, we'd rather you come to the museum.
Sure.
And that way we have you captured in our environment. But if you can't come to us, we'd be more than happy to bring something to you.
And that is really good for schools. You know, particularly I know the SOL pressure and the amount of time kids can spend away, and buses are kind of costly, and they come to the museum particularly at certain years, but in between, this is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a good relationship with the schools, and they do send us kids in 4th and 12th grade. But what we'd like to do is still be able to reach out to schools, and then there are other venues that have an interest that are kind of non-traditional, like libraries. A perfect place to put these exhibits are in libraries. For example, I've had a couple of phone calls from libraries that are ordering books that are relevant to the 1619 occurrence, the celebrations and commemorations this year. So they're interested in the exhibit to kind of boost the visibility of the books they're bringing in. So it works together nicely. And of course, churches are paying attention as well. Community centers, any of these organizations are welcome to contact us, and we'll see if we can't place it with you.
So 1619, big deal in all of Virginia, but
Yes.
especially in Hampton. Landmark year, celebrating seems the wrong word, but commemorating
I have
is
to correct
the term.
myself.
Well, we're celebrating other things, though.
Yes.
It was in Virginia, it was the first Democratic Assembly,
Exactly.
the arrival of also women, I think. There was some other things going on.
Monumental year in the
But in
history of
Hampton,
Virginia.
it was the arrival of the first Africans, and game changer for the country,
was.
game changer for Virginia, but set in place, or the beginning of setting in place, the horrible.
Well, it did. We have, to this day, we have a culture that is influenced and driven by the tensions and by the influences ethnic groups have on each other. And however difficult the start was, it set us on the path that brought us here. And that definitely deserves commemoration. And, you know, I can make the argument celebration, because I am so happy that we have the culture we have. You know, obviously we would like to make things always, always better.
Well, and I think that we generally bookend it by talking about the beginning of the institution of slavery in, what do we say now, British North America.
British North America.
But also the beginning of the end of slavery, the beginning of emancipation with the contraband decision, and both of those things happened.
Isn't it wonderful that
what is now Fort Monroe?
Yeah, right there within stone's throw of each other, these two events occurred that brought the beginning and the beginning of the end of this epoch.
And then you can begin to celebrate the contributions of what African Americans brought to this country, what they built, what they've, you know, contributed. It's huge.
Yeah. Look around you in the South at the architecture would have been built by enslaved Southerners. The food that we still consider Southern cuisine is African American cuisine. We have the wonderful contributions of the blues and jazz and rock and roll, all of these musical forms that really trace their roots back to this community, that can trace their roots back to 1619.
So we are looking back at 1619, and at the museum itself, you have, obviously, because it's such a huge part of Hampton's history, a permanent exhibit.
Yes, we have a permanent exhibit in our Ship's Hold Gallery, which, of course, ties nicely into there where they were brought here.
You talk about the
aboard
passage.
Slave traders. The passage was a horrible, horrible experience. So we do have that permanent exhibit that has some artifacts on display, and we would encourage you to come visit that. The traveling exhibit takes all the themes and the imagery. Of course, we don't travel the artifacts with the exhibit.
Right.
But again, we want you to come to us. You can't come to us, we'll come to you. And maybe if we come to you, you're so inspired by what you see, you want to come to us anyway.
Well, and that really helps us build toward the events that are going to happen in August.
It is.
And maybe people don't come to us now, but they look at the traveling exhibit, the interest begins to build, and you look at coming toward August, when things will be happening at Fort Monroe and elsewhere.
Our timing is very much on purpose. We wanted to, at the first of the year to get this moving so we can have the better part of a year to be part of this commemoration, this being one of our contributions to it.
So I am selfish in that I tend to think of the Hampton institutions who could put this on display, but I could put on my tourism hat and say, oh my gosh, this could go anywhere in the country, and consider educating people outside Hampton about our role in history and about this, kind of key moment that changed and shaped our country. This could go anywhere, right?
Absolutely. It's a very simple exhibit to ship, install, and dismantle and ship back. It's free to those who would like to come pick it up and bring it back to us. If they're out of town, it would need to be shipped, though. They would just have to pay for the shipping. It's again, very simple. There'll be instructions with it, and I'll be at the end of the phone to talk them through if there are any questions.
This is kind of a new thing for the Hampton History Museum. I mean, you guys speak in schools all the time locally,
yes,
but this kind of outreach is a little bit different. It's not the first time, though. You did it once before.
Yes, we did it with our Computers Wore Skirts exhibit, and we had such a positive response from that exhibit, we thought this really does ask to be spotted in different locations. Now, it has primarily gone to universities around the country. We had the same kind of response from the 1619 exhibit we did in-house, that it was in demand, and we had feedback saying, is there a way? So we discovered a way. And our hope is when we develop a new exhibit that we design it in such a way that we can do this, that it'll have a life beyond and outside the walls of the Hampton History Museum and can go around the city, around the state, around the country if folks are interested. So that's going to be our approach. This way we can reach so many more people.
And both Hidden Figures and this are tied to, it's not just an exhibit that happened to take place. They're both tied to these larger things. I mean, the Computers Who Wore Skirts had this link to Margaret Lee Shetterly's nonfiction book, which was tied to the fiction Hollywood movie, which had factual themes, but which was dramatized and accessible, to this much larger audience. So it had layers that you could build on and that people could expand. Much the same with 1619. People can learn on your panels, people can continue to read, people can come to different events. There's a lot of layers there that people can choose to experience or not, depending on if you're in the 3rd grade or the 5th grade or college or an adult.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that museums do so well is we add a component to this popular culture, this attention that the world is paying to a subject that no one else does. We have the 3-dimensional presence. So, of course, we want to be timely when we develop a new exhibit, to tie it into some ongoing theme that makes folks think about it and then think about us. So, of course, when we did the Computers Wore Skirts exhibit, we were clearly interested in doing our part to tell this story of these human computers out at NASA. And with the 1619 exhibit, we saw coming these commemorations in 2019. What a monumental event. It is incumbent upon us at the History Museum to tell the story, and these are the ways that we can do it. So we definitely want to be part of any of these occurrences that are becoming forefront into the mind of the public. We want to be part of that.
Does this also have international interests? I mean, the former colonial powers that were involved in the slave trade and in establishing slavery here, all the European nations, are they examining this in the way that we are at all?
I'm not sure I have a clear answer for that. I know that they settled the issue seemingly much earlier than we did, so it may be less of a demanding theme for a lot of folks around the world. I have not gotten any requests. Well,
they sort of settled it by getting out of the colonial powers.
They got out of the business of the slave trade, and of course slavery was abolished.
And they didn't have as much of the implications because it was in their foreign countries, not in their home.
Of course, they held on to their imperial holdings, which is a whole different story.
Right.
But in fact, not part of the 1619, but we did have interest in the human computers from Japan, for example. We were contacted by Japanese national television who wanted to come and cover the exhibit. And they sent a team from Japan to the Hampton History Museum to talk to us about the human computers and the exhibit we were developing for it. So,
women, careers, all kinds of things that could speak to a generation.
I think these are universal, yeah.
The themes continue to interest and enlighten all of us. All right, Allen, if somebody wants this, how can they do it? And, you know, it could be anything. It could be a girls' club. It could be anybody that is interested in it.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we are particularly interested in placing it in a non-traditional venues. We don't want just a bunch of museums applying for it. We have an online application. Go to www.hamptonhistorymuseum.org, and you'll see at the top banner, there'll be 1619 arrival. Click on that, and you'll see a couple of options, one being the exhibit. You go to the exhibit, you'll see an option to fill out a form, an application for the exhibit, to host the exhibit. That comes to me, and then we'll get you on the schedule.
And you're saying you have bookings in February already?
February is already booked up. So come March 1, it'll be available. And we do have some bookings in the summer. So the sooner I get this information in, we'll get you written into the schedule.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope you realize what a wonderful resource the History Museum is making available for free. And I will say, I forgot to ask Allen on camera, but he noted that this was through funding provided by the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So I will note that. And certainly their interest is going to be also getting this out beyond the city. But here within the city, you could do it for just a week. You could make it a focus of an event. It could be there for you, and you could return it so someone else can make use of it. It is a great resource, and it is important for all of us to be aware, to understand, to examine our own heritage and how these important events have shaped the Hampton, the Virginia, and the country that we are today. Thanks for watching.